Back with us on the Sunrise Morning Show is Stephen Howard from In Defense of Christians. Good morning, Stephen. Welcome back.
Good morning, Andy. Good to be with you.
Now, IDC has been working with a couple of congressmen on a resolution to support Coptic Christians in Egypt. Can you tell us about this resolution?
Absolutely. The number is at HRS 117, entitled Supporting Coptic Christians in Egypt. We're encouraging people to go onto our website, indefenseofchristians.org, where they can go and take action and tell their member to support this resolution. And what it really calls for is equality. It simply states that Coptic Christians are entitled to the same rights as every other Egyptian. So, for example, there are thousands of churches that are built that cannot properly function because of laws that require certain licenses and permits. There are many other churches, thousands of other churches, that haven't even been constructed for the same reason, just for licensing and permits that we don't see in place for building other religious institutions. Similarly, we see Christians targeted in hate crimes. We just saw a woman a month ago, Swet Sabet, and Sarah Salama of Coptic Voice was on your show to discuss this, but this woman was actually dragged through the streets. The 70-year-old woman was dragged through the streets naked in an act of public shaming, and the three men who committed this act were just acquitted. And similarly, when Christians are targeted by mob attacks, quite often, rather than holding the perpetrators accountable, the victim and the attacker are sat in a room by local authorities, and the victim is pressured into, quote-unquote, forgiving the attacker in a reconciliation session. So there's so much work to be done, and we can go further. There remains discrimination, and Coptic Christians are also prevented from even things such as playing on the Egyptian national soccer team and even certain roles within Egypt's bureaucracy. So we've got a long way to go, but the short answer to your question is that this resolution just calls for equality. We want our people to be treated equally.
Stephen, can you tell us about religious affiliation cards, which this resolution urges the Egyptian government to end?
Certainly. In Egypt and indeed many countries in the Middle East, your religion will appear on your national ID card, and this can be used as a means to discriminate against you. And even there was an instance some couple of years ago where on the Sinai, a taxi had been pulled over by a group, and this group asked everyone in the taxi to reveal their national ID cards. And when they found out someone was Christian, they chose to abduct that person in particular. Now, I will say that it's very good to call for the removal of religion from a national identity card. But the reality is, if your name is George or Paul or Mina, people are going to know that you're Christian anyways. And so there's a remarkable amount of work that we have to do just to promote tolerance. So it's a good step. Certainly all Egyptians should be treated and viewed equally, no matter their religion. But also we have to recognize that for a lot of people, it's well known that they're Christian just by their name. And so we're going to have to look at just working, with Egypt and within Egypt to promote a greater culture of tolerance.
Yeah, and how can the government do that? I mean, I know that they've made overtures, at least surface-level overtures, to try to at least present themselves as tolerant on an official basis. Why hasn't that worked?
Well, I think that they deserve, some credit. At least, expressing tolerance, from the office of the president is helpful. I think the problem, though, is that their motivation is to present a false image of religious tolerance that doesn't yet exist. Mm-hmm. What they could be doing is actually confronting the issue. They could be ensuring that if you don't need a license to build a mosque, you should also not need a license to build a church. They could be reforming their justice system, so if you attack a Christian, you go to prison. Instead, in this year in D.C., they've chosen to hire a very expensive lobbying firm that includes Congressman Ed Royce, who is one of the senior Republicans on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and a former staffer of Nancy Pelosi. So they've gotten some very high-level Republicans and Democrats to do their lobbying on Capitol Hill, and they even a month ago distributed a fact sheet that stated that they have achieved religious freedom. And this fact sheet was almost certainly in anticipation of or response to the advocacy that we're leading. And our point is, look at, we understand that Rome wasn't built in a day. We know that it's going to take some time to achieve tolerance and to achieve religious freedom. But if you're really serious about it, you wouldn't be hiring a lobbying firm to sugarcoat actual religious freedom violations and present, a utopia that isn't actually there.
Well, Rome wasn't built in a day, but I mean, this is one of the original sites of Christianity, is it not? I believe St. Mark was one of the evangelists in Egypt, and so this is an ancient Christian population that has just been dwindling. Can you take us behind the scenes of drafting this resolution a little bit, Stephen? What went into it? What role did IDC play?
Sure, that's a great question. 1 month ago, we actually held a press briefing on Egypt. It featured a panel of remarkable speakers that included Congressman French Hill, who introduced this resolution, as well as Congressman Brad Sherman. So we have a Republican and a Democrat who are two strong congressional champions of ours who spoke at this event. The panel also featured Nadine Maenza, a board member of In Defense of Christians, and a commissioner on the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. It featured Kurt Werthmuller, also with USERF, as well as Samuel Tedros, who's actually a Coptic Christian himself, probably the leading thinker in D.C. on these issues, and a scholar at the Hudson Institute. And so we put this panel together to really look at and assess current religious freedom conditions in Egypt, and we had a very candid conversation about what the Biden administration, what Congress can do to push this forward. And we really give all the credit in the world to Congressman Hill, Congressman Sherman, Congressman Cicilline, so many members. This resolution already has 13 bipartisan co-sponsors. But it's been tough. This is the third consecutive Congress this resolution has been introduced. It did not pass in the previous two Congresses, largely due to pressure from the Egyptian embassy in D.C., who does not like being called out for the fact that Egypt has a long way to go on this issue. So, to be fair, the resolution is very fair, to President Sisi and the Egyptian government, and we want to work with them to improve conditions for Coptic Christians and improve human rights in general on the ground in Egypt. We recognize it's an American ally. But at the same time, we're really working to show them that, hey, you don't need to lie. You don't need to spread false messaging. You have a religious freedom problem. Let's work together to confront it and to address it.
Well, you can tell your congressman to speak up on behalf of Coptic Christians and vote for House Resolution 117. Go to the Take Action section of indefenseofchristians.org, which is linked at sunrisemorningshow.com. Stephen Howard, thank you so much.